Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with the jazz group The We Trio. I caught up with a few members of the band to discuss their 2008 origins, coming out of Brooklyn, and more importantly, their thoughts and plans on their latest record, 2016's We Plus Three. They had plenty to say about their careers up to this point, what has influenced them, and what the future may just hold. So get to know these cats and their great jazz, and dig this interview, my friends.
Right up front, I just got to tell you, I'm sporting my best Tom Waits voice that I can possibly pull off, which was a big moment for me last night because I had my show, and you typically when your vocal cords are out, you stop. But I'm like, I've waited for 5 years that I've done this show to sound like Tom Waits, so I'm going to go. I'm going with the bravado, and I'm going to do some impromptu poetry at the end. So that's what happened. So up front, thank you for taking some time. I really dug We Plus Three. So I want to talk to you about the album and kind of the beginnings of your band and what's going on with you guys.
Sure. Okay. Sounds great.
So what we're going to do here to start off is the new album, as I mentioned, We Plus Three. Talk to me a little bit about what's going on with the promotion of this album and what's going on with you guys lately and how you feel about the album. I always like to have that perspective of when you go in the studio, what the feeling was like.
Well, I'll jump right in and say this album is something we've been talking about since the beginning of the band. You know, like driving around in a car, we always talked about doing an album with guest artists. And it was always a big logistical and artistic lift to get that together and figure out who we wanted to bring into the group and how we were going to do it. And especially as the group got tighter over the years, like we had such a sound as a band. So it got harder and harder to think about how we could add people in, and it became like more of a artistic challenge to invite someone into the group. So finally getting to do it, finally deciding that we were going to do it was really inspiring, and also just like a ton of work from a lot of levels. Like we put more into this album than we put into any record. And so we're thrilled. It was one of those things, like it was so much work doing it. At least for me, like I almost didn't realize how well it was coming out until we actually got it back and listened to all the masters and realized how good it sounded and how good everybody sounded on it and how well the guest artists came. So we're really going gung-ho. We're behind this record. We're doing a lot of touring around the States. We're going to be in the Northeast, California, and all through the Heartland. It's on the Grammy ballot. It's a Grammy-considered album in a lot of categories, and so we're thrilled to present it to the world.
Beautiful. You guys all came together in Brooklyn in 2008, correct?
Yeah. So, Dan and I had gone to Eastman School of Music together. We had done a ton of playing, and we were in a lot of ensembles together, and we're roommates. You know, we were very, very close, and we played a lot of music together. So we had a really nice hookup and a thing together. And when we moved to New York, Dan had his own group, the Dan Loomis Quartet, and he had a couple of great saxophonists in that, and I was in that, and we had done some touring. And one day on actually the street where we lived, 23rd Street in Brooklyn, New York, we saw a mutual friend, a guitar player, who we asked him why he was walking down our street, and he said, I just played with this fives player named James Westfall. Do you guys know him? We said, no, and he said, you should. He lives right across the street from you guys. So we kind of, James and Dan had played a session together, and they really liked playing with each other, and James and Dan said, hey, let's start a band. Let's do a band of all Nirvana tunes or something like that. And
yeah, right.
And they tell this story. It's funnier coming from Dan or James because they say, James said, let's get this drummer, blah, blah, blah. And Dan said, what about my buddy Jared? He's great. And James said, okay, we'll get him. So, and then we were initially going to do a quartet with the guitar player, but for the first tour, the guitar player couldn't make it. So we initially were just a trio, even though some of the gigs we had booked for this initial tour were expecting a quartet. So we got some pickup sax players in the area, or no guitar players, but a couple sax players. So we started then. We did a great maybe 10-day tour throughout the Northeast, and came back and we made our first record. And we were playing a lot of Nirvana material then, but we started to develop some original music and some other covers. Sufjan Stevens' tune became part of our early rep, and I think some jazz standards as well. You know, We See, Thelonious Monk, some other There Is No Greater Love. So that became part of our early rep, and we continued down the line, and here we are. I think we'll call it 2007 when we started.
Okay.
Right? Does that seem right, Dan?
Jared has the best memory of the group, so I'm going to defer to him.
Well, I know the record came out in 2007, so we could call it 9 years.
We must have been together then, yeah. In order to release the record, we must have been a band.
Yeah. Well, piggybacking off of that story here, I guess the best ironic metaphor of everything right now would be if James actually called in, because he would wander in again, right?
Yeah, right. That's
he would
right.
just wander down the street and get in the interview.
Yeah.
So let's hope for it.
Keeping true to his character, absolutely.
That's awesome. On a personal note, I just got to say my dad grew up in Brooklyn. He was born there in 43. So when I hear all these modern tales of all of you guys that are up in Brooklyn, I heard all the stories about how the Dodgers left Brooklyn. I mean, this was the early days when you had the Italian neighborhood, the Jewish neighborhood, the black neighborhood, the Irish neighborhood, and there was all these factions, and it was kind of like that Francis Ford Coppola moment, you know. So
right.
It's always cool to hear. But let me ask you two this. If you guys could kind of come together as a band and think about who your jazz influences are, who do you guys emulate? Who do you love?
Well, I would say we have a lot of people that we love. We've gotten further and further away from emulating people the longer we've been a band. But that was kind of like the reason that we worked together as a band, I think, really well right from the beginning. We had so many influences coming in, but I guess as far as jazz influences, I know Jared and I were both listening to a lot of like the Branford Marsalis Quartet. We were very influenced by Keith Jarrett. A lot of other sources. Jared, can you jump in here and say, I know you and James have a lot of like common influences that you guys draw on.
Yeah.
Do you want to illuminate that?
Well, yeah, I mean, we all are very influenced by, I think, the second great Miles Davis quintet with, with Wayne and Tony and Ron and Herbie. I think because of their openness and willing and want to play the same material but always play it differently every night, and we consciously and unconsciously emulate that, I think, and with our own music. I think we're all super influenced by Crane's great band with Elvin and Jimmy and McCoy. We also, James and I, really like the same kind of modern records as far as like band interplay, Joshua Redman stuff, Brad Meldau stuff. We used to get compared to the Bad Plus a lot early on, just because we were also a trio doing rock covers in, interesting ways. We've received a lot of praise, praising our improvising in comparison to them, but we also really do dig the Bad Plus and what they do, but we never wanted to sound like them. I'll say that.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So why do you guys love jazz?
I was going to say, like Jerry was saying, because we get to play it differently every night. It's like we love playing together, and like the reason we love playing together the most is because we can approach it in a new way every single night. And then I would say also because of like there's a particular like deep groove to jazz. Like even it's like we all play a lot of pop music and a lot of other kinds of music, and you feel like an amazing groove from a lot of other kinds of music.
Agreed. I think we all enjoy playing other styles of music as well. But I think for us, when you find the right combination of people playing jazz together, nothing tops that, because you're able to bring all the great elements of other music, whether it be groove or time or form, but also improvise and take chances that you not necessarily can't take doing a pop gig or doing an R&B gig or whatever.
Let me ask you this. You guys have been on the road. You guys have played a long time, for years and years. Is there a story on the road that you guys that's safe for radio that you guys retell because it's so good?
There are stories that aren't safe for radio.
Yeah, that's what I'd go for, but we got radio here.
Well, Dan, do you want to tell the Capitol Diner story?
Yeah, one we like to tell is one of our first gigs was in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. There used to be a jazz club there called 405 Jazz. And so we had I think we had 2 nights at 405 Jazz. And we stayed at this really rickety motel on the outside of town. And Harrisburg, as many people don't know, but many people do, is the capital of Pennsylvania. So there's a diner called Capitol Diner. And you went into the Capitol Diner, and they had paper placemats, on the back of which was a map of the United States with all the capitals left blank. And so while you're waiting for your eggs, you try and fill in all the capitals. And so in retrospect, it's kind of even more amazing because it was the last moment in time where that could be a difficult thing to do. Now we just be just ask Siri what the capital of Maine is. And
yeah.
But that wasn't quite a thing yet. It was 2007. So we were trying to remember all the capitals. We're debating. We're phoning a friend. We're asking the waitress. And I think by the time we'd really filled in all 50 capitals, we had formed bonds as a band that could not be broken. And we've been together since.
Right on. That's a great story. That is a great story. So it is amazing. I mean, how many people just don't know anymore, and you have to ask Google, and you have to figure it out, through a search engine. But let me ask you this: from all the tales on the road and all the fans you played for, what's one of the nicest things that's been said to you by a fan?
Wow. You remember, Jared? You remember any exceptionally nice things?
I remember a couple. Man, remember there was this one woman at the Rochester Jazz Festival who, I don't know, it's just kind of something like we changed her life. Our music was so inspiring, or put her in such a deep trance that it changed her life. I remember that. We've gotten that a couple times.
Wow,
very cool.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's good. So let me ask you this: you guys are on a bill. You guys are on a tour right now. If someone picks up a local newspaper in their local town and they come across your name, if you could have that clarity, that Siri voice to whisper to them who you are and what you guys are all about in some kind of abbreviated tweet, how would you describe your band?
Oh, the elevator pitch.
That's the big one, the PR miracle.
Yeah. Let me call our PR guy, and we'll get right back on that. No.
All right. This is when James calls in and has the answer.
I know.
Yeah. No, to be honest, this is what we all dread as artists, is have to reduce it down. But I will say that if people are wondering about the band, I would say it's all the best of modern music, but done in an improvised jazz context, which means that when you come to see us, you have the most to gain. When we're improvising, we have the most to lose and the most to gain, right? Because we could have the best night and find something completely new, or you could hear all the amazing songs just like you heard them on the album. So and also we're all bringing the influences we all grew up with, from music in the 90s and 2000s, to this music. So you hear all that, and you hear really brave, authentic American improvised jazz. So that was not an elevator pitch, but I'm working on it, and that's a little closer to the length that we're going for.
Perfect. Very good. Hey guys, thank you for opening up, giving me kind of a portal into your music, and I'm most definitely going to play some tracks off your album. So thanks for your time. Thanks for opening up. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thanks so much, Joe.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in New York, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to the Wee Trio for their time, their history, and all that music. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store, or on YouTube, visit Neon Jazz. And you can always get everything Neon Jazz at the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the music, my friends.
Neon Jazz.